na kurzu IT Quality a tam jsme se zblížili jak teda z pohledu odbornosti, protože to téma nás oba zaujalo a zahájilo to nějaký další proces vývoje té metodiky a zlepšování a i po osobní rovině. Takže od zhruba těch 4 let zpátky s Jonathanem intenzivně komunikujeme. Jonathan byl několikrát v České republice, zná tu komunitu ITSM Česká republika, tak doufám, že ta přednáška, kterou jsme připravili, že bude užitečná a já teda přidám slovo Jonathanovi. So Jonathan, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
So you can start and introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yes, absolutely. And in terms of the slides, I think I need to be made an organizer in order to present my screen. My name is Jonathan Boyd. So I'm based in Edinburgh, over in Scotland. And basically over the last sort of 20-something years, I have been involved in IT service management. So from different roles, such as working as a senior solutions consultant with Gartner Magic Quadrant ITSM tool vendors, going out helping organizations with their transformations and using service management to best effect for those organizations. A few years ago now, I met up with Zdenek, who introduced me there, and we first started talking all around the IT quality index, so understanding a little around what IT quality is and sharing our thoughts around challenges that we see and I guess things that didn't quite make sense around what IT views as quality. Hence my involvement with the IT Quality Index. And as soon as I can share my screen, I can start to talk through the slides. I don't know if Susanna can make me a presenter.
I can't make it. Ani já, ani Jonathan nemůžeme začít sdílení obrazovky. Paní Kapuncová, nedá se s tím něco udělat? Vy tam u těch participants můžete u někoho kliknout, aby byl prezentátor.
Well, I'm trying to solve this problem. I know about it, but I don't have this option here. So I've called Mr. Schultz, and he's right now trying to solve this problem. So I'm sorry for that, but I'm sure that we will.
Okay.
Jonathan, hello, Patrick is there. You can start talking and also it could be resolved in a few minutes. Huh?
Sure, no problem at all. So I guess while we're just dealing with that, it would be good to understand from perhaps the audience what their view on IT quality actually is. I don't know if you want to either put it in chat or if you're comfortable speaking, just give your view on what you think the meaning or the definition of IT quality actually is.
So if we follow IT logic, quality means meeting requirements, satisfied customer.
Yeah. Anybody else got any other ideas? Who's going to go second? Certainly from the IT service management perspective, it's all around kind of warranty. So have we provided what was required? Did we meet the requirements? And does that indeed work? Does it fulfill those requirements, and is it available when the business needs it? And I think I think for me, certainly, I've always viewed this as more of a minimum requirement rather than the measure of quality. If your measure of how good you are is that you have done what was required and that it works when it's needed, then really that's a minimum requirement. Of course, you should be doing what you are being required to do from the business, and of course it should work when they need it. But I think that looks like we're good getting there. But of course, you know, we do need to do a lot more, especially today. Oh goodness, Zdeněk, you have that photo. But I think today, in modern organizations, we have to do an awful lot more. We have to do an awful lot more. So I can...
So it's presented from Zuzana's computer.
Well, I think Patrick may have solved.
Yes, you can now share your screen, Jonathan.
So let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so you know who I am now. So that's fine. We can move forward. And I think the conversation that we're just talking about there, we have to do a lot more in terms of quality. And a good quote here from a Gartner symposium around the sort of measuring of IT costs per employee. It was really the kind of wrong metric. The formula needs to be flipped. And I think it gives us, you know, good ideas as to how we can address modern challenges, because I'm a big fan of using the term, what got us here won't get us there. We're on a journey, and as an industry, I think we have to embrace new ideas and challenge pre-existing concepts that we've had, even long-held ones and beliefs, in order to be able to advance. I guess when we look at the idea of what actually is IT, first of all, so in many organizations, IT is treated like a cost. And I use the analogy of car insurance. Now, in the UK, it is enforced, you must have car insurance, and you go through a broker and they'll find you the right quote for your vehicle. And what really happens is, because they're all pretty much the same, you just want it at the cheapest possible cost. So you want to be as low as possible. And every year you want to try and get it as lower as you can, because it's not seen as adding any value, except, of course, when you have an accident, in which case you do indeed need the insurance and you're very thankful for having it. And I think IT suffers the same perception. While everything is going well, it's a cost, we need to reduce it. And then when everything breaks or something happens or a security incident occurs, then all of a sudden we realize why we need IT, and we see it as an asset. And as soon as we get everything back up and running again, it's very quickly forgotten about and we're back to being a cost. So how can we position IT in a business context? So for people who are not IT service management focused, how can we communicate with them in a way that allows them to understand really what IT does all day? And it's way beyond just simply fixing things. How do we become viewed as a strategic asset? So I guess a question, open to people, and think about this yourself, is if someone within the organization, such as the CEO, was to come and ask you, how good is our IT? What would you say to them? How would you respond to that? Typically, what I see is, CIOs and IT leadership tend to revert back to metrics and measures. And they'll use all sorts of metrics that they've collated about incidents that have been resolved, first-time fix rates, maybe even through problem management and change management, how they have avoided issues and how uptime has been maintained, and SLAs, and we're 99.9%. And quite often what I find is that the non-IT people, like your CEO or your CFO or the kind of head of marketing or chief people officer, don't really understand any of that. As far as they're concerned, the fact that something broke is a negative. Now, we live in a real world where it's impossible to have things that are never ever down and don't ever fail. It happens. Software bugs happen. Issues that we were unaware of. Security threats are increasing all the time. And we need to be able to communicate, I think, more effectively with non-IT people and help them to understand exactly the value that we're delivering. And going back to how I started this conversation is, the definition of quality in that respect no longer fits. Because if we use the ISO definition, where it's the sort of degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills requirements, we're back to saying we did what you asked and it works, therefore we are good. And really, that should be viewed as a minimum standard. You should never be below that line. You should always be able to say that we did what you asked and it works. And the challenge around these or this approach within ISO is that it comes from a paradigm where the service provider and customer are always separate. Now, if you sell IT services to an external customer, that model certainly is appealing. But again, it's missing a huge part, as we'll explore, of what actually is deemed as valuable and useful from both a partner and an internal IT department. So when we look at this structure and all of the current bodies of knowledge that are out there, they all form or focus, I should say, really on quantitative metrics. So that's your percentage of tickets closed with an SLA, your benchmarking of costs, your first-time fix rate, staff retentions or churn rates, CSAT, NPS, etc., CES scores, customer experience. And looking at things like self-service and being able to report on these kind of quantifiable sources of data. And really what that's missing is the bit that the rest of the organization tend to focus most on, and that is the view of quality. How good actually is it, as opposed to just how many tickets have been solved. So you can see that there's a disconnect between the question of how good are we against being able to answer with traditional metrics and measures. And it's a good point to kind of pause and talk a little around with regards to, is internal IT the same thing as external service providers? When we think mentally around the model of a service provider and external customers, as you can see on the left, it's a very, very different relationship and interaction to that of an IT department within an organization supporting the IT infrastructure of that organization, supporting the digital assets, supporting the software and services that organization require in order to be able to operate their business, certainly in a modern era where really every area of the business involves technology of some description. So back to the fundamental question of what is IT quality? if I'm saying that it's more than just doing what we're told and that it works, how do we explore that? Well, the good news is that the Oxford Dictionary already has a perfectly good example of what that definition should be. And this is what everybody outside of the IT industry will use. So when we're talking quality, really we should be using the language that they already know and understand. And that is to say, it is the standard of something as measured against other similar things. It's the degree of excellence of something. So it's not about the minimum standard, it's about how much further IT actually go to protect our organization and to advance our organization and to innovate, using technology to open up new revenue streams, to make it possible to enter new markets, new products to be delivered and sold. So there's a lot more to IT, and I think that we're missing half of the measures that we really need. And one of the great quotes from Aeneas is that good is mostly in the absence of bad. And I think this is a great point again to think about. And I often use Greek philosophy in various different ways. One of my personal favorites is Plato's cave. Every time I come across a problem, I kind of go back through Plato's cave and remember that what the person saw was nothing more than reflections on the cave wall. And when you get outside the cave, you realize that there's an entirely different world. And that helps provide new paradigms. You discover new perceptions of what things are, and it facilitates the ability to get round challenging issues, to see things differently from a different perspective. Patrick put a fantastic post a week or two ago where he was showing a particular equation and asked everybody, is it correct? And of course, people are saying no, people are saying yes. And Patrick responded, eventually putting everybody out of their misery on trying to find out what this meant, was that really it's kind of both. And it's not the equation that needs to change, it's more the individual's perception and how we're looking at things. And this is a very good example. So if we only look for good in a specific paradigm, then typically we'll find what we want to find. We'll reinforce our own perceptions with information, where really what we want to do is to get a more 360-degree view, a more honest approach that removes human biases. And that is what the IT Quality Index does. So we measure things not only from the positive, but also from the negative perspective. Now, the IT Quality Index itself, there's a number of supporting collateral and documents that we can share through ITSMF Czech Republic following this, such as the single sheet there you can see on the kind of lower right-hand side, going over all of the key details of the IT Quality Index, from how it's measured, the calculations, the output reports that are made available. Interestingly, we still go back to customers even years later, where they very proudly have the IT Quality Index certificate on their wall. So they still show this for people coming to the IT department. So whether that be people from other organizations coming, which has even given us referral business, to internal people where they've come and they've seen this and they've asked questions, what does it mean? And the CIO has been able to talk them through a system that gives them confidence and really, I guess, a sense of honor in what they're doing and real achievement around what IT are doing for their organization. And there's different approaches to quality for kind of different domains. And I think using the right tools in the right context is vitally important. So when we look at things like product or a physical object of some kind, and I guess also into individual services, you can understand why in a product physical characteristics, features, benefits, etc., all come into it, and tolerances, and the technical criteria by which this product meets. Individual services, you can see why the voice of the customer is very important, understanding what the requirements are in order to meet them, and you can see where that focuses. But when you think of IT, certainly in a modern organization, it's more of a complex system. What we're starting to see is a shift from a linear world where things were very much like the production line in manufacturing, where we had IT systems that were not particularly complex, but maybe not very reliable. Many may remember, big IT systems with tape reels firing around and, all of this. That's the sort of 30 years ago model when these were all created, these paradigms on what quality is. And we've moved to a kind of non-linear approach where rather than the value being created at the end, it's actually more towards the center of a complex interconnected system with multiple different relationships. And the quality of IT has to take into account a far greater number of activities that a typical IT department now undertakes. It's more multidimensional. And that's where it really comes to understand the perception of quality. In our personal lives, we may look at quality very differently to each other. So for example, when you go and you look for a car, some people may buy that because it has 4 wheels and an engine, and that's all they need. Whereas other people, they buy a car because of how it makes them feel. And that's the difference. So when you ask one person, they're basing their answer of how good is IT on their own perceptions and experiences that they've gone through. And if I suddenly think you're great, brilliant, but then I see something different and I think, gosh, that's so much better, the quality level of IT suddenly drops through no fault of your own, through not changing or doing anything different. And that's why we need a model that helps to encompass those different perceptions, gives us a real basis in fact. And that's why we have to be able to include not just the traditional metrics, but also the quality side of IT. As we move into more knowledge work, where it is more time consuming, it's not about first time fixes or moving calls on quicker or answering calls quicker. It's more about being able to get to the right answer and to be able to protect our organization. It's about being able to understand what the right questions are through things like data analytics and being able to understand where to focus investment to get the best impact for the overall organization. And that's why it becomes a bit of a balance. If you're too quality focused, then you may miss some of the key things that are still required operationally. And if you're overly operationally focused, then you're missing some of the things that the business will be seeing more holistically. One of the best examples I can give you of that is working with organizations where IT thought we've done a fantastic job and we've launched this new service. It's gone out to the business. They're all using it. Great. And we did it under budget. But when you speak to the rest of the organization about the same service, they're talking about, well, it took a while to get here. Once it was released, we had bugs that we needed to fix. That cost us time. We had to retrain our staff. Then when we start to get used to it, we get into it again. After a couple of weeks, then we started to basically achieve value from that service. So we've done all this. IT, what did they really do? All they did was, made the email work. And I think we have to try and avoid those types of perceptions of IT by showing more holistically what we're doing. A balanced view of both quality and quantity, or quantitative measures. And that example shows where IT were overly focused on operations, but the business was overly focused on quality, and there was a disconnect between the two. And through the IT Quality Index, what we're doing is we're bringing those back together, we're gelling them back so that there's a true balance. This slide shows examples of the certificate that I mentioned earlier. So with the radar graph and all those different points around the radar, or spider if you prefer, this actually gives you a clear understanding of all of the key points within the IT Quality Index that we measure. And it shows you how well you do, not against some theoretical compliance standard. It's about the best that your organization could be given the budgetary constraints. So the targets are realistic. The actual is where you are. And we can combine that with comparison of other similar organizations, because all of the assessors have a long time within this industry. We've worked with many different organizations, working through finance and manufacturing, retail, etc. We've managed complex transformation programs, so we have a depth of understanding to help let you see from a different perspective where you can gain improvements from. And the point that I like most about it is it also shows you not only what you kind of do well at, but, or should I say, not only what you can improve at, but also what you do well. And when you compare that against the type of organization, you can start to see things that you're investing time and money in that the business don't actually care about. And that allows you to shift resources to make the biggest impact. So if you're spending time doing something and the business really don't see any benefit in it at all, and it has no measurable benefit overall, then why not shift the focus to things that are going to give you a bigger impact? So with regards to this slide, it's really showing the different kind of complementing metrics, as we see here. So it's not just about the IT Quality Index itself, a simple measure to be able to understand, but it feeds into things like skills analysis and the quality that is being delivered from the knowledge work that you're actually creating. And this leads into kind of really information theory, where we're talking about knowledge has a mass. And as an organization, it is vital to have more knowledge to be able to understand what innovations you need to make, what changes you need to make. So understanding the quality of that data and those insights from knowledge work is vitally important. And it's also about the collaborative experience. So we talk about customer experience, we talk about experience level agreements. But one of the things that I've found most interesting is when you get a whole load of people from across the business, not just in one role or one seniority, but a good mix of people. It's amazing how orchestrated serendipity can create ideas, it can resolve problems, it can spot problems before you would ever have thought about them. You're talking about releasing a service, and someone from the back who happens to be in finance or some other department, they put their hand up and they say, well, have you thought about X, Y, or Z? And chances are you've not thought about it because you don't work in that role. You would never know that. You would never come to that conclusion. So being able to understand how the collaboration is working is vitally important, getting the right skills together and making sure that that time is best used for the benefit of the whole organization. Any questions?
Yes, Alesh is speaking. I do have one.
Hi, Alesh.
So you say that we should stop doing useless measurements and to better concentrate on some important KPIs probably, and do some assessment several times a year, and that's enough for our I won't say customers, but our colleagues.
So I don't think it's as black and white as that. What the IT Quality Index framework provides is the ability to give a 360-degree view. So when we say don't do things that are kind of useless metrics, how do we know what those metrics are? How do we know which ones are useless? Because every organization is different and the context will be different. What the IT Quality Index allows you to see is which ones are not providing the impact that you think they may be for the whole organization, and therefore to really use the resources in better areas. So if you think about it more in terms of not just stopping and starting different things, but more in terms of supporting your strategy. So what do you want to improve? What evidence do you have that it's what needs to be improved for the whole organization? And how do you measure the improvement once you've done it from a business perspective?
You know, I don't know how is it in English, setrvačnost.
Well, if you want to say in Czech, Zdeněk can either translate or answer in Czech.
Já navrhuju, když tak se, pane Poledníku, zeptejte česky, já to zkusím odpovědět česky. Jonathan, I will respond in Czech, if you do not mind.
Yes. Ano, je to jen ten problém setrvačnosti, že předtím, než člověk se vrhne na tady tu takovou novou záležitost, musí překonat poměrně dost překážek a nastavit nějaké nové myšlení. Že jo? A to nejde jen tak na lusknutí prstu, to chvilku trvá.
Ano, ta myšlenka, tam na jednom slajdu to bylo, že vlastně ten Quality Index má vybalancovat ten dominantní fokus na kvantitativní metriky, jako je třeba počet incidentů, ale nikoliv je nahradit. Ta myšlenka je taková, že ten systémový přístup ke kvalitě, jako je dlouhodobá metrika, kterou má smysl měřit třeba jednou za rok nebo za 2 roky, ale vyvažuje a snižuje důležitost těch operativních metrik, které mnohdy reflektují pouze fluktuace. Jako šum, protože mnoho věcí jako vy neovlivníte. Vy neovlivníte kadenci změn v biznisu. IT na to reaguje. Takže za mě takto.
Děkuji.
Any other questions? Okay. So I guess if there are any further questions, even further down the line, maybe at a later date after, hopefully you've had time to kind of process the information, please send them either directly to Zdeněk or myself, or indeed through Patrick and the team at the ITSMS Czech Republic. And of course, we can answer them at any point whatsoever, and provide any kind of support or advice that you may need or like to talk or discuss about. We're more than happy to help out. I apologize for my complete lack of Czech, but as I say, I have the important ones, so I know how to say piva and děkuji.
Those are the most important things here.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Perfect. Take care.